Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Convo Couch. I am Pasta Jardula, and I want to apologize because I tried to go downstairs to the studio and get it working, but I couldn't. I spent an hour down there. As you can see, I have a tie on. My hair is done very well. It's very early in the morning, late at night, whatever you want to say. It's 3:30 over here, and I am working on this video now because even though I wanted to go to sleep, I thought it was very, very important I do this video with you because there's a lot going on with the Epstein case. But before we get started with the Epstein case, I wanted to come to you, ladies and gentlemen, with my hearts and my hands out, as humble as can be, but ready and strong to go to work for you on this Epstein case, because it really is about the citizens coming together and getting this information out. This roller coaster ride might be new for some, it might be new to the mainstream, but it's been running around for a long time, and we have three different levels of viewers on this channel over here, the Convo Couch. We have those who like to get educated from us, and they watch our stories, and they whatever they do on their regular jobs, but they always say thank you for the information, and they kind of send those shout outs. There's those people who are just following along, people who are in the bubble with us, people who like to share our own information and whatnot. And now, since the Epstein case, more than ever, we have the educators, those of you who have jumped on this channel to share your information with us, people who've been looking down these rabbit holes for a long, long time. And you are miles ahead, not of just me, but the mainstream and the public. And the reason why I am asking for the position, you might say, of, well, what do we need you for, Pasta, if we have all this information, is that we need someone with crossover appeal. Someone who can go and talk to the mainstream media or be on the mainstream media when they start peeling from the independent media. Someone who's going to represent the voice. I'm not saying I want to be with like them. I didn't do this to be Jake Tapper or to be Chris Cuomo or even work on their networks. I did this because I thought I had a responsibility. For me, I now know what I am. And somebody left a message, and I just want to read it. And it says, YouTube, why are you such a corrupt, shitty organization? You are defunding non-violent, intelligent, well-informed citizen journalists. I am a premium user. A portion of my subscriptions should be going to makers of the content I watch. Don't be thieves. Pay up to the makers of the content, those who entertain us and enrich you. And that was by Gus Johnson. And the message really resonated with me, not because he was really talking about us being demonetized and saying that YouTube should pay up, but he kind of pinpointed what I am and what we are, citizen journalists, because that's what it takes. We need to all be citizen journalists. So I want to use my platform to the best I can to get this information out. And I made a show for you today explaining the responsibilities that I think I have, or the responsibilities that we have, us, not me, whatever. And I just would like to say, hey, continued support. For those of you who support us on Patreon, thank you so much. For those of you who know this information and have been talking about this for a long time and have been sharing that information with us, with me and Fiorella, we thank you. We keep sharing it. We're going to look at this information and we're going to make sure we get this out, because to me, this is the fight for humanity, this Epstein case. The tentacles go way deep, and if there are strings being pulled up on top, what choices do we have? We're just nothing but ants for the queens, for the elites, and we need to change that. So, and revealing this case is going to take three responsibilities, and here are the responsibilities. Number one, number A, is to understand and respect the pace in which this case is laid out. There have been some people on the thread who have said to me, Pasta, if you really think that this is, Jeffrey Epstein was only about sex trafficking for women, then you haven't done your research. Yes, I have. Not all of it. There's still a lot I have to learn. But I have touched on that case. It's irresponsible in a way. I don't want to say it's irresponsible, but it's the least effective way to thrust on so much information, on so many levels of this Epstein case. It just will not stick. it will scare people away. We need to respect the pace in which this is going to be rolled out on. And we have to watch that pace mainly on the mainstream media, which I'll get into that. Because we also have to be, number two, we have to act, more importantly, I know you all out there know this, we have to act as the guard dog, not the lap dog that the mainstream media is. We have to call them out. We have to understand the pace in which the people are receiving this information, but we also have to hold these fuckers accountable. The mainstream media. Okay? C, we have to look at all the information objectively, but we have to look at all the information. And so people have been coming to me like, Pasta, what's your sources? What do you look at? And you have these other, people who just kind of, once again, they demonize people for looking at certain informations at certain sites. Let me tell you something. I cherry pick from everything. I look at everything objectively. I look at all pieces of information. I don't push anything away. But that doesn't necessarily mean I buy into it or buy into the theories. But I look at all the information and I look at it objectively. So if you have information to send to me, send it to me. So once again, the three things. Understand and respect the pace. We have to watch MSNBC. I have to watch MSNBC. That is my responsibility. In fact, I'm going to break down an interview that we just had and identify the people involved. Number two, we have to act as the guard dog. We have to watch these bastards. And number three, we have to look at all information objectively, but we have to look at all information. So let's talk about who has been chosen by the mainstream media to be the anointed one. Her name is Stephanie Ruhle from, I believe the show is Aleshi and Rule. She has the partner Aleshi. Stephanie Ruhle, it's kind of makes sense why she was crowned the anointed one. She always interviews hedge fund managers, Wall Street moguls, but we have to analyze her coverage and we have to keep a good eye on it because I personally believe that Stephanie Ruhle doesn't understand the depths of this case. She's like most Americans and most people just trying to rationalize, trying to get really concrete answers to connect the dots. And their connecting of the dots is very different than our connecting of the dots. But I want to go into the video. Let me go into the video right here.
This morning, a series of new reports have focused on answering one lingering question in the case against Jeffrey Epstein, the financier who pled not guilty to charges of sex trafficking of teenage girls. How on earth did Epstein make all of his money?
So there she goes right off the bat. See the way she unloads it? How on earth did he make all his money? I think most of us are beyond that. She's still trying to connect the dots with Americans. It's surface level with the mainstream, ladies and gentlemen. Don't become impatient. Just let it take its course. Let it take its time. Let the people regurgitate the information. Let the people kind of digest it inside. It's a process. But right off the bat, where on earth did he make his money? We know somehow the elites gave him his money. He didn't act by himself.
According to the New York Times, he had deep ties to some of Wall Street's top figures. The Times details that Epstein, quote, liked to portray himself as a financial wizard, someone whose business and investing acumen made him indispensable to corporate executives and other leaders. But there is very little evidence to support that notion. Mr. Epstein nonetheless managed to affix himself to a handful of prominent Wall Street veterans. Meanwhile, an article in Vanity Fair dives into Epstein's relationship with billionaire hedge fund manager Glenn Dubin and how Epstein turned personal relationships into multi-million-dollar deals for himself, and why exactly these Wall Street veterans stayed by his side for so many years. Joining me now, Bill Cohen, who also dug into Epstein's Wall Street network that in his must-read Vanity Fair piece, and the writer behind the stunning New York Times report, Kate Kelly. Kate, walk us through the network that Epstein built. The fact that the head of J.P. Morgan's private bank, Jess Staley, visited Epstein not in his mansion, not at his island, but in his work release prison office.
There she goes again. How can this happen? Can you believe this? He had work release and women came to see him in his office? How can this happen? Watch.
Right. It's pretty phenomenal. So let's talk about Staley first. Now the CEO of Barclays Bank in Britain, at the time a senior executive at JP Morgan running its asset management division. When Staley started in that JP Morgan role, he was told that he needed to know Jeffrey Epstein because...
See, now, this one, she goes, he was told to bring this guy in. Now, what is us on the case? What do we say? Well, who told him? Who told him that he had to deal with Epstein? You know, they kind of start the story from this, oh, he was told through the grapevine? Somebody come whisper in his ear, hey, man, you got to do business with Epstein. No! Somebody up high told him, deal with this guy.
Because Epstein was a rainmaker of sorts who brought clients to JP Morgan. Epstein was a client himself in the private bank. So Staley did meet him. Epstein apparently did steer clients to Staley and to JP Morgan, dozens of them.
Being a connector isn't that odd. You get paid to be the middle guy. But when he was in prison?
See? Still in prison? I mean, she can't get over it. And they're going to be stuck like this for a while. They're like, no, come on. I mean, Stephanie Ruhle still thinks that the law is for everybody, that everybody has to follow the law, including the elites, that if they just got away with it somehow, it hasn't caught up to them yet. She doesn't grasp and understand the depth of this story yet. She's still trying to make the connections through Wall Street. And you'll see, because the other guy, Mr. Cohen, he knows a little bit more. He gets a little bit deeper. Hold on.
Bill, in your piece, you describe an interaction between Epstein and Joseph Kuznin. This is a portfolio manager at Highbridge, and I want to read it because the description is so out of the ordinary. And this is according to someone who heard this story. Kuznin went to Epstein's townhouse and was ushered into a little room by a butler. There, Kuznin saw Epstein sitting atop a raised platform like a throne, with two strikingly gorgeous young Eastern European women standing beside the chair. Epstein asked Kuznin a few questions and then quickly declared that he was dismissed. The butler escorted Kuznin out of the mansion. He walked back to his office, and sitting on the fax machine was the signed paperwork from Epstein agreeing to make a multi-million-dollar investment in Kuznin's fund. This is not a normal interaction. A hedge fund manager doesn't go to a wealthy guy's house and greet him on a throne surrounded by beautiful women, and then years later, when the fund may lose some money, an investor doesn't get to then get all their original investment out. Why on earth would this scene happen?
Right, so there, you see how she's still doing it too as well. She's like, why on earth would this happen? How could this happen? This makes no sense. She's still kind of, and you don't know if she's being genuine or if she's being told to do this, or it's so hard and early to kind of figure out where in the game Stephanie Ruhle is on this. I mean, everybody's going to just automatically assume that she's going to be an elitist, but this isn't her area. You know what I mean? The finance things, they can let her dig till the sun goes down, but it's not going to explain the cases of Epstein the way you guys know it, the way we know it. But I like the fact that they got Will Cohen in here. He knows a little bit more. He knows a little bit about the dark side. But once again, they're going to just try to baby step this and deal with the facts of the case. But listen to Will, and he goes into a little bit more of it. Go ahead.
Well, I think it happened, Stephanie, because of Glenn Dubin wanted it to happen. Both Joseph Kuznin, who did spend some time as a portfolio manager at Highbridge, and Dan Zwirn, who also spent some time as a portfolio manager at Highbridge, were setting up their own funds, sort of like Tiger Cub kind of funds under the auspices of Glenn Dubin. And Glenn, having this big-time relationship with Jeffrey Dubin, directed his affiliates to essentially accept this money from Jeffrey Epstein, no questions asked. And of course, in typical nouveau hedge fund manager way, they didn't ask many questions, even though they weren't allowed to. And of course, they accepted the money because it was a lot of money.
He threw out some names there, builds a little bit of a story. Once again, Will Cohen knows a little bit much. He knows a little bit more. But watch this next clip here too as well. I mean, it's kind of good to get Bill Cohen on there telling a little bit story. Like I said, he knows a little bit more. He's a little bit more deeper than these other two over here. But watch what she does. She understands where he's coming from. She understands that he's more of like talked about the deeper, darker, which she would be considered to be a little bit more of like the conspiracy theorist mindset. She doesn't want to get that far down. She doesn't want to hear shit unless it has stamp of approval, been approved, and the source has been backed by 19 different stupid whatever news sources. She only wants to look at stuff on the surface. So watch her right here in this clip, because she kind of cuts him off and then she goes into this whole thing. Watch.
What was Jeffrey Epstein's special talent? This is what I don't get. Right? Why would they all stand by him and for so long, Kate? If we're talking, we go back and we think Bernie Madoff. All those people flocked to Madoff because of outsized returns, right? If you're talking about an amazing investor like a Chase Coleman, look at his returns, a Stan Druckenmiller. If it was a John Paulson during the subprime, you'd say, this was the magic. Where was Jeffrey Epstein's magic that had some of the biggest guys? Leon Black, the founder of Apollo. What in the world does he need? What does he get from Epstein?
You know, and once again, Stephanie, being highly educated, knowing all these people in the market, why she was put on this case, what does he need? Still just trying to make sense of it. Like it's an A and B, la la la, happy friggin' trails life. Like there's nothing dark about what we live in. Like the deep state and the special, you know, fucking the intelligence forces don't do dark things. You know, you sit there, you see Pompeo talking about like, oh, you know, never lie, cheat, and steal. But then he laughs as he's talking about, you know, we had classes that taught us how to lie. We had classes that taught us how to cheat and steal. They've been manipulating everything from up top. And now, you know, Stephanie just can't, she still can't grasp her head around it. And you got to be prepared because a lot of stories are going to come like this. And you got to be able to call them out at points. And you got to also, at the same time, respect the pacing, I guess. Take a look at the next part.
So I think there were two narratives surrounding Jeffrey Epstein, at least until he became infamous for these other reasons. He managed Leslie Wexner's fortune, which we know, and that was
founder of L Brands.
Founder of L Brands, a billionaire.
Really quick, I just had to stop there and just see how fucking far behind they are. That she has to mention, you know, Les Wexner, manager of, you know, started off Victoria's Secret, manager of L Brands. She's got to educate. I mean, this is a piece of information a lot of you people out there knew maybe 10 years ago. You see how far they are behind? Sorry for that. Let's go on.
Decades ago, at a time when there were less billionaires, and had a very far-reaching, all-encompassing sort of role, managing his investment money, managing his philanthropy, doing family office type of duties. I don't even think we know the full extent of it yet, but it was wide-ranging. So he was known for that, and he got wealthy, at least largely in part because of that. People knew that. He also had a reputation for being savvy when it came to tax strategies and estate planning. Now, where he got that reputation beyond Wexner, I'm not sure.
So there they go. I mean, and this is the case where the New York Times reporter is kind of manufacturing ignorance. It's kind of manufacturing a patsy of sorts, like, you know, a reason why, you know what I'm saying? Okay, he was a tax strategist. Maybe he made money over there, and maybe they find a link through the tax strategist, you know, and then try to scapegoat somebody else. But they're looking for scapegoats. They're looking for logic. They're not looking to go deep in this case, especially with this interview. It's kind of on the surface. But we're going to finish it up, and you can watch what William Cohen says. And then you got to watch the pushback from Stephanie.
Bill, many of these relationships stayed with Jeffrey Epstein through his prison sentence and after. Glenn Dubin is one of them. Could it possibly be that these people didn't actually know the extent of what he had done? If he went to jail for soliciting a prostitute, that could be something that people could say, listen, this isn't good, it's not great, but I forgive you. Is there a chance they did not know the extent to the possible wrongdoing or what he's accused of now?
Look, Stephanie, Kate Kelly is a fabulous reporter, and I respect everything she does. I'm really wondering, frankly, whether there's just a lot of myth-making going on now about Jeffrey Epstein and his, you know, tax and accounting prowess, his money management prowess. I think this is all a narrative that's being created to cover up something much deeper and darker that we don't know what it is yet, because I'm sorry, you don't give somebody a mansion on East 71st Street that's now apparently worth $77 million just because you're managing his money.
That, though. That at this point,
no,
Les Wexner gifting Jeffrey Epstein a mansion at this point is urban legend. It may be true, but we don't know that for sure.
And therein lies the whole problem too, as well. It's kind of amazing, but 3 hours later, she has another interview, and I'm going to play a little bit of that interview where he talks about Les Wexner gifting the house, and she pretty much accepts it because after this interview, somebody had to have told her, whether it be William Cohen or her producers, and say, hey, excuse me, but you're behind the eight ball. That house was gifted by Les Wexner. That's kind of old news to people. And she got really, really defensive, and she pushed back when Cohen kind of presented this whole theory of that, and he even kind of laid it out. He said to the other young lady, Jen, Kelly, whatever her name was, I'm so sorry. She's a great reporter, and I respect what she's doing. But, B-U-T, there's some other shit that this is all set up. This is a narrative to hide what's really going on. And Stephanie Rule right away, no, wait, that's fucking urban legend. That's the problem, Mrs. Rule. You're not going to get NBC, MSNBC, all these other sources like clarifying this information. Half this information that's out there is not like what you would know as a credible source in the media industry. It's coming from all different places. It's coming all over the place. Now I got to jump to this other interview because I can stay on these interviews all day. I thought that was really important at the very end to watch that stuff. Just to watch how the mainstream media is going to be guard dogging this. Because I wonder if Aleshi comes back, her partner, if he's going to be the same way. She is not willing to go any further than the surface right now. She's not ready for it. And that's what I'm saying. Not even it's not just the people aren't ready for this. It's the reporters aren't ready for this in the mainstream. Let me be that guy for you. And I'm going to be that guy. Not that I want to be on these shows, but I will be if I have to explain some stuff. Because this is about the citizens bringing truth to life. This is about taking back our fucking humanity. If we've ever had it, this is a chance. The elites are upstairs running shit, and now is the time. Let's go to this next video. Watch how this reporter opens up, and he gives a little bit more information, because remember when we talked about what we can unpack and what we can't unpack? When somebody had mentioned to me, Pasta, if you think it's just about the girls being trafficked for sex, then you haven't done your homework. No, there's more to it. And I want you to pay attention to, and you can go down your own rabbit holes, do your own researches. I'm just going to touch it right now. Just pay attention when they talk about science, philanthropists, scientific philanthropists. Or listen when they talk about mind control stuff. And I'm not going to dig deep on that right now, but it's something that's part of the theory that we can't ignore. Go look at it yourself. I'm not going to talk about it, but I'm going to talk about 3 other stories real quick at the very end, and one is going to tie into it. But check out the way this particular reporter, once again, how Stephanie sets it up, but then how she unpacks it as well. Take a look.
In a close look at Epstein's circle, New York Magazine examines the, quote, cesspool of elites, many of them in New York, who allowed Jeffrey Epstein to flourish with impunity, including former President Bill Clinton and ousted CBS anchor Charlie Rose. Joining me now, Deputy Editor of New York Magazine, David Wallace Wells. David, help this. I must read this. Very top of the article, this quote. It's stunning to me. For decades, important, influential, serious people attended Epstein's dinner parties, rode his private jet, and furthered the fiction that he was some kind of genius hedge fund billionaire. There is a long list of elites, some of the most powerful people in New York. Why is it, how is it that this guy was able to get so many of them in his web?
Well, I think it's a complicated question, and I don't actually feel like we know the answer yet. I think that the story is still very much behind closed doors. We don't yet totally understand how Epstein made his money. He's said to be a hedge fund manager, but we only know that he ever had one client who dropped him 15 years ago. Nobody on Wall Street has any memory of having any dealings with him at all. There's some thought that he may have been setting up tax shelters for some of these billionaires. Some thought that he may have been trafficking in Saudi money because he has relationships in Saudi Arabia. There's even some implication, kind of unfounded, that he may have some intelligence relationship either with Israel or with the US. I think we really don't yet know the nature of a lot of these relationships, but it's clear that he had in his network not just most of the most powerful people in New York, many of the most powerful people in the world. Ehud Barak was one of his, was close to him, Prince Andrew from the UK. Now, the nature of these relationships is similarly unclear. He seemed to have a social relationship with many of these people, almost all of whom are men. Some of them were at parties where some kind of unseemly things were happening, but it's not clear which of them were involved, to what degree, who may be implicated beyond just having a friendship relationship with him. For me, the question is, how did so many people, especially after he pled guilty to soliciting prostitution in 2008, how did so many of these people continue to associate with him in the years since? He's been really involved with Harvard, funding a lot of their scientific research. He's been a major fixture in the New York social world since. Peggy Siegel has been throwing parties for.
You could see that gentleman unpacks it a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't completely go into things. He says there's a little wishy-washy. We don't completely know. I think he's probably on my level, maybe a little bit more. That he's just been looking at the stuff and been like, yo, this is a lot of stuff. I don't have complete knowledge of it yet, but I know something's going on. He talked about the tax shelters thing again, once again. I think they want to try to amplify, or the elites want to kind of come out like he made all his money by setting up tax shelters, or the Saudi thing they talk about. They also leak a little intelligence in there, so people, in the mainstream who are new to this, be like, oh, intelligence, and they can start looking at the things we looked at before. But more than anything, the thing he also said is he also donated money to science programs at Harvard, scientific reliefs. And that's where I'm saying that you got to start going down your own rabbit holes. I'm not ready to start breaking and talking about it on this network yet. We're not there. We're dealing with the facts of the case, and we're doing a little bit more dip diving than these people are, so we can bring some information to light. But one thing to pay attention to is the scientific money that's going in there and stuff. Remember, this is like I reported on this channel, he shared a helicopter with Dynacorp, and I believe it was Dynacorp, I think it is, had a governmental tag on his plane. There was money involved from our government. They aided and abetted, whether it's Mossad 2 or these other agents. We don't know yet. We don't have all the full answers. I think we will come up with them, but let's dive into this a little bit more.
And what has been the argument from these people, right? If I'm the founder of Apollo and I have access to the most sophisticated tax preparers on the planet, what is the rationale being given by some of these luminaries as to why exactly Jeffrey Epstein was in their life? Often, when it's a genius investor, they could point to it. They could say, John Paulson is the godfather of the subprime trade. He made me all of this money. What has the explanation been from these people?
Mostly they've pled ignorance, and they actually don't have financial relationships that we know of to him. As I said, there's only one person we ever know ever had his money managed by Jeffrey Epstein. That's Les Wexner, who is the founder of Victoria's Secret, among other things, and who was Epstein's kind of patron. In fact, he gave Epstein the home that Epstein lived in until he was just arrested, which is the biggest house in all of New York City.
Has Les Wexner given any rationale behind why would he give him a home that's now valued at
$77 million.
And there it is too, as well. She talks about Les Wexner. He talks about Les Wexner, and he talked about her gifting a house. And then 3 hours earlier, you saw what she said. Oh, no, you can't say that. But now it's like what somebody told her, and just like that. I mean, that's all the resources in the world MSNBC has right there. So, information is coming to light to them, and it's being revealed that. I don't want to go into these interviews anymore, but you can see that we got to keep our eyes on Mrs. Rule if she's going to be, and the mainstream media as a whole. We have to watch them. We got to make sure, ladies and gentlemen, So it's a responsibility we have. It's a responsibility I am not going to take lightly. I am going to watch what they say. I'm going to watch how they present things. I'm going to see if they try to scapegoat anybody, because they don't want us going into this case. If this case stops right now for the elites, the better. They wanted this shit going away when Obama was president, all those people involved. So, and once again, I'm not praising Donald Trump. I am glad that it is coming to light right now under his administration. I don't care. But once again, we have to keep an eye. So let's get to the other point of news about this too as well, because there's been some new information that's come to light, because a lot of this stuff is going to happen. And in the True Pundit, it says FBI rocked by public suicide of top FBI agent who investigated the Clinton Foundation. What a surprise. You hear a lot of these stories out there. Some of them they say aren't true, but let's take a look at this one. There were two sources. I also got another source over here. It was in the True Pundit, and it was also in The Count. Here they both are. It's good to have two sources if you can. Whatnot. It says, FBI agents are mourning the death of Salvatore Sal Cincinelli. It's a Paisan, one of the Bureau's top financial supervisors who reportedly died in a suicide last week. Cincinelli was 41, apparently shot and killed himself in a crowded nightclub dance floor, according to the True Pundit on Tuesday. So there it is again. He killed himself in the middle of the dance floor. It says Cincinelli was once a supervisor special agent who spearheaded many of the FBI's high-profile complex Wall Street investigations, including probing the finances of the Clinton Foundation. After leaving his Wall Street career, Cincinelli was first assigned to the New York field office and later promoted to the headquarters in Washington, D.C., where he was a native New Yorker as well. A very bright guy, an FBI insider said. Such a young guy. It really gets to you in the gut. He put in the hours, too. He was always working hard. It says Cincinelli was reported out partying with the FBI colleagues in a container bar, a trendy watering hole in Austin, Texas. The group had been drinking and dancing, according to sources. Later in the evening, Cincinelli reported turned the gun on himself in a crowded dance floor and blew his brains out. Nobody wants to speak about it. This is where we're at, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot of crazy things like this happening, and it makes you want to look into those mind control things and everything. Who knows what the situation. He was investing in the Clinton Foundation, and like we said, the tentacles of this case are going everywhere. Certainly Epstein had a lot of things to do with the Clinton Foundation. It's just, it's weird. It's hard to deal with, but we have to pay attention to things like this because they are connected. Also in the news, look at this one. Thank God this one didn't happen all the way. Jeffrey Epstein found injured in a New York jail cell after possible suicide attempt, sources say. Now, there were many theories. There were theories that there was another guy in a cell that beat his ass. He denied it. There was theories that Epstein was faking it because it didn't look too much crucial of an injury so he can get transferred to a lower level facility. There's so many different theories on this. I don't want to get into it, but it did happen last night, and that's why I had to make this video, because I had to break this news and get this out there. And I think there were odds. A lot of people were setting odds on Jeffrey Epstein possibly killing himself or getting killed. Hopefully the trail doesn't end there, because this particular case is really about those awesome people that we know. There are some great people and men and women in law. They're just not all a bunch of jerk-offs that beat people up. There's some great people who work within the police department, work within the FBI, who are trying to protect people and trying to get to the bottom of this case. And they've done some great work. And the more work they do, the better chances we have of cracking it open. Right now, essentially, the gentleman, I want to see more in New Mexico, what's going on over there, because there's a lot of people that can crack the case open over there. A lot of information is going to be coming. And that's that. But also I have to make a retraction, because I made a statement and this is the third and final piece of information, I made a statement that James Comey's daughter, Maureen Comey, was working as the defense. She's not working as the defense as a lawyer. That was my bad. I must retract it. The information was coming at me so fast, and I just looked about it like it's the big club and you ain't in it, and she's part of the big club. But we have here some information which somebody sent in for me, which is great. She is part of the prosecution team. But it says, will former FBI Director James Comey's daughter, Maureen Comey, actively interfere in the Epstein investigation in order to prevent the Clintons from being implicated? She seems to have a distinct and documented bias sufficient for her to be removed from the case. I found this. Now, this is something we have to do. And this is the information. Look at the contribution she has to Hillary Clinton and the fund. I mean, I know it's just a couple $100 here and everything like that, but you know, that's what you do when you're a supporter. You throw a couple bucks these people's way. She has a bias. She should be removed from the case. And that is something that's public outcry we can do. We can have her removed from the case. We have to call DOJ. I believe the DOJ. And I'm going to look into this, who we have to call. If you have your information on who we should call to get James Comey's daughter, Maureen Comey, off this case, please do so. Send in the information. And we got that. Now, the last piece of information I'm going to send you guys on my Twitter today. I put up a really pretty interesting piece today, because today we had Will It Ever Die? The Mueller investigation. And I said I was really hoping, I put down, I hope that somebody goes rogue. And let me just read the tweet and I'll put it up there real quick. And I put this down. It didn't come true. I put, wishing that a member of Congress goes rogue tomorrow and asked Robert Mueller if he had any knowledge of the Epstein case back in 2008 when he was the FBI director, when they cut that sweet deal. What? Can I wish? Well, it didn't happen. They didn't ask him the question, but I can't stand Robert Mueller. So I took a little video, and I hope this doesn't censor my video, and I put a little fun music to it, and I showed what Robert Mueller was all about today, because I hope we put this guy to rest. This guy is a deep state, Clinton loyalist, hack piece of shit that lied us into the Iraq war. And this should have not have been the Democrats' last hero. Take a look at this little video.
Leave it with the report. So I would have to refer you to the report on that. Direct you to the report for how that is characterized, and would direct you to the report itself.
Okay. Well, I looked at 182 pages of it.
It's outside my purview. It's outside my purview. Outside my purview. It's still outside my purview. I can't answer that question. Not can't get into details. Can't get into that. The letter stands for itself. I can't get into it. Can't get into that internal deliberation. I am not going to get into that. I'd refer you to the coverage of this in the report. I refer you to our lengthy dissertation on exactly those issues that appears in at the end of the report. I'm not going to delve more into the details of what happened. If it's in the report, then I'm supportive because it's already been reviewed appropriately. I'm not going to get into what was in Mr. Comey's mind. I'm not going to answer that. I'm not going to go beyond that. And that letter speaks for itself. I can't speak to that. I'm not going to get into that any further than I already have. I can't go into the discussion of our investigative moves. I'm not going to get into that at this juncture.
Okay.
And that's an area which I cannot get into. That's beyond my purview.
No, it is exactly your purview, Director Mueller, and here's why. Christopher Steele in the course of your investigation.
And I am not going to answer that question, sir.
What would be your
I'm not going to speak any
characterization?
more to it.
So you can't speak any more to it, but you're not going to agree with my characterization.
I hope you like the music for that one, you know. That's on my Twitter. MSNBC is going to probably take it down. They don't like my shit. But I put some little fun music to it because I really thought it was comical today. And I thought Mueller, I mean, it's like he didn't even read that report. And, you know, once again, it's connected to these deep state hacks that lie to us, that wasted 3 years of the people's time and distracted us from what's going on. Hey, you know, it's too late. You guys have been exposed, and we're moving on. So we're going to find more about this Epstein stuff. We're going to break news for you. I'm going to do some great work if you just empower me, if you guys get behind me. We have a Patreon. Please help us out. Any penny helps. The more money we get over there, the less work we have to do in our work jobs. That means our restaurant jobs, and we can spend more time digging in and looking into these things, talking to our sources, and hitting the streets. I am Pasta Jardula for the Convo Couch. Johnny Tsunami and Fiorella Isabel will be back soon. Remember, we have the debates here, guys. I want to say thank you very much. I come to you humble and wholehearted with the opportunity and the chance, hopefully, that you give me. Just want to say goodbye and Convo out.